Well, hey there. Welcome to Algebra 1 CST release question number 76. It says a rectangle has a diagonal that measures 10 centimeters and a length that is 2 centimeters longer than the width. What is the width of the rectangle in centimeters? So sure sounds like we should draw a picture for this one. Let's draw a rectangle. That's what it's talking about here. It says the diagonal, which I'll talk about in a second. That's not a very straight line. Let's see if I can make that a little better. A little better there. Not the best rectangle I've ever made, but that'll do. And we know these are all 90 degrees in the corners. If it's a rectangle, we know opposite sides have to be the same length as well. It says a diagonal, that's this part right here. That diagonal will connect two non-adjacent vertices, two corners basically that aren't right next to each other. So it's going to connect opposite corners, and it says that the diagonal measures 10 centimeters. So I'm going to put 10 cm on that part. And it has a length that is 2 centimeters longer than the width. And so, in other words, I can say that if I call this x, calling this the width, this one's going to be x plus 2. X centimeters and x plus 2 centimeters. And so we're going to take that idea and we're trying to find the width of the rectangle in centimeters. So what are we doing? We're solving for x, in other words. And so what do you see that we can do here? Well, I see, since this is a rectangle, I know this has to be a right triangle right here. And there's something called the Pythagorean Theorem. You'll learn a lot more about it in geometry, but you're supposed to learn about it in algebra and even before this. Really, really important theorem from geometry that it's so important that we learn it before you even get to geometry. What does it say? It says that leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. And what do I mean by that? Well, the legs, they make up the 90-degree angle, and the hypotenuse, that's the fancy name for the longest part, the part across from the right angle. And so this is a formula that always works. Pretty neat that it always works, but you don't really learn how it works or why it works until you get to geometry. You do a proof of that in geometry. For right now, we're just going to use this theorem, use this formula, Pythagorean Theorem here, and we're going to plug in the legs and plug in the hypotenuse. I know the leg is being represented by x, another one by x plus 2, and the hypotenuse by 10. So just notice that I've replaced everything with what they equal. Now I have x squared plus, I can think of this, I'm going to write out this intermediate step. Some of you may not have to do something like this. Some of you may know the shortcut. 10 squared though is 100. If you know the shortcut, you can go right to the shortcut from here. But this, if you FOIL it out, you would have x squared. That'd be first. And then inside and outside would both be 2x. So plus 2x, and then last would be 2 times 2, 4. From there you can combine like terms. So I've got 2x squareds here. Some of you may have known the shortcut. I talked about that up here. That shortcut would be to say it's this one squared and this one squared. That's coming here and here. And then it's these two multiplied by each other. That times 2 because it shows up twice down here if you FOIL it out. But either way you do it, you should get this eventually. So 2x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 100. And then I can subtract 100 from both sides, it looks like. I'm trying to get one side equal to 0. That's what I need to do when I'm factoring things. That's what I'm going to have to do here to solve this problem, factoring. So I've got this would be minus 96 equals 0. Looks like I can divide everything by 2 to make the problem a lot easier to think about. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to have to move up here. I need some more space. So dividing everything by 2 will get the 2 in front of the x squared cancel. You'll just have x squared, and then you'd have 2x. Minus 48 here, that's going to equal 0 divided by 2, still 0. Now let's see if we can factor. It looks like we can, looking at our answer choices. It looks like it's a nice clean whole number, not some radical thing or square root thing. So we have x and x, and we need to get something that multiplies to negative 48 and adds to positive 2. So two factors that'll do that. I know 8 and 6 are 2 apart from each other. They'll multiply to 48. So one of these would have to be negative. Looks like it would have to be that one if it's going to be a positive 2 when they're added together. So x plus 8 and x minus 6. From there, you can set up two equations if you need to. Some of you probably don't need to. You can just look at that, I hope, and say that what would make this factor 0? Negative 8. What would make this factor 0? 6. And then 0 times whatever this is would be 0. 0 times whatever this is would be 0. But if you need to write it out, or you just got into that habit and it's a habit that you like to do, something you like to continue to do because it works every time, go ahead and use that. So we could have x equals negative 8, or we could have x equals 6. Both of those values plugged in up here would make this equal to 0. So which one do we use? Do we use this one, or do we use this one? Well, it looks like 8 is an answer, but not negative 8. And could you have a negative 8 for a length right here? That's what it is. It's actually the width, I guess we could, or we should say. But could you have negative 8 for a distance? The distance from here to here is negative 8? No, that doesn't make any sense to say distance is a negative value. Therefore, we use this value right here, x equals 6. This would be 6 centimeters then for the width. This would be 6 plus 2, which would be 8 centimeters for the length. The hypotenuse is still 10. And if you plug those values in, 6 squared plus 8 squared would equal 10 squared as well. You plug that back in into the Pythagorean theorem. But all that said, our final answer for number 76 is choice B.